You were trained to believe life is a courtroom, that if you explain yourself clearly enough, rational actors will judge you fairly. This belief is not naive. It is lethal. Social reality is not a debate. It is a battlefield of pressure, dominance, and silent testing. No one is listening to your explanation to understand you. They are listening to measure you. Every word you offer is scanned for hesitation, emotional leakage, moral pleading. You are not speaking to equals. You are being evaluated by predators who already sense an opening. Defense is not neutral behavior. Defense is an admission that you accept their right to question you. The moment you explain yourself, you implicitly agree to three things. First, that you are accountable to them. Second, that their perception outranks your authority. Third, that you can be pushed. This is the lens shift you must accept or be consumed. Power does not operate on truth. It operates on posture. In high-stakes social environments, workplace hierarchies, relationships, negotiations, accusations, the one who explains is already beneath the one who demands. Explanation is not clarity. Explanation is submission disguised as virtue. You think silence makes you look guilty. That belief was implanted to keep you manageable. In reality, silence creates asymmetry. It denies the aggressor feedback. It removes their leverage. It forces them to overextend, reveal intent, escalate prematurely. When you explain, you stabilize the interaction in their favor. When you withhold, you destabilize the entire frame. Understand this clearly. Social pressure is applied only where resistance is expected to collapse. People do not demand explanations from those they fear. They demand explanations from those they believe will comply. Your defense is the compliance. This is why powerful figures rarely justify themselves. Kings did not explain. Generals did not debate. Interrogators extract explanations. Sovereigns issue decisions. The hierarchy is ancient and instinctive. Those above act. Those below account. Modern society inverted the language but not the biology. You were told that transparency equals integrity, that openness equals trust. In reality, constant transparency is enforced only on the weak. The strong are private. The dominant are reserved. The sovereign are mysterious. Ask yourself who is pressured to explain. Employees, not owners. Men seeking approval, not men with leverage. The accused, not the accuser. This is not moral commentary. This is pattern recognition. Every time you rush to clarify, you are signaling fear of exclusion. You are advertising that your identity depends on external validation. That signal is irresistible to manipulators. They will push harder, not because you are wrong, but because you are reachable. Withholding defense is not silence born of confusion. It is silence chosen with precision. It is the refusal to accept a frame where you are the defendant and they are the judge. Once you see this, the entire social landscape changes. Questions are no longer neutral. Accusations are no longer emotional events. They are probes, pressure tests, attempts to see whether you will fold into explanation or stand in ambiguity. And ambiguity terrifies those who rely on control. This chapter strips away the fantasy of fairness and replaces it with a colder truth. The world rewards those who control frames, not those who clarify them. Defense feels safe because it feels moral. But morality without power is just exposure. You are not here to be understood. You are here to remain unpressured. That is the battlefield. Accept it or remain permanently explainable. The urge to defend yourself is not logical. It is biological. When pressure is applied, your nervous system interprets it as a threat of exclusion. Social animals that failed to signal compliance were removed from the group. That ancient wiring still governs modern interactions. Your body does not seek truth. It seeks safety. And safety in a hierarchy is purchased through submission. This is why defense feels automatic. You are not choosing to explain. You are discharging anxiety. You are trying to re-enter favor. Every sentence you offer is an unconscious attempt to say, I belong. Don't cut me off. Predators understand this instinct better than you do. They do not apply pressure to discover facts. They apply pressure to trigger submission reflexes. The moment you begin explaining, their hypothesis is confirmed. You can be moved. You can be made to react. You can be shaped. This is the core psychological mechanism. Defense equals lowered status. Status is not granted by logic. It is inferred from behavior under stress. High-status individuals respond to pressure with stillness, not speech. Low-status individuals respond with justification, not authority. When you explain, you give the other party three forms of power simultaneously. First, temporal control. You slow yourself down while they remain still. They ask, you answer. The rhythm becomes asymmetric. Whoever controls tempo controls dominance. Second, interpretive control. Your words can be reframed, challenged, or selectively remembered. Silence cannot be cross-examined. Speech can be dissected. Third, escalation leverage. Every explanation invites a follow-up. Clarification breeds interrogation. One defense is never enough because the goal was never resolution. The goal was compliance conditioning. This is why arguments never end once you start defending. The other side keeps misunderstanding you. They are not confused. They are training you to keep responding. Your brain mislabels this dynamic as fairness. In reality, it is dominance conditioning. Children explain to parents. Employees explain to managers. Suspects explain to interrogators. Notice the direction. No one powerful rushes to correct misunderstandings. They let others sit in uncertainty. They understand that clarity is a gift, and gifts are not given downward. There is another darker mechanism at work, moral inversion. Society teaches that refusal to explain implies guilt. This belief protects authority structures by forcing the question party into self-exposure. Once exposed, they can be reshaped, shamed, or neutralized. The irony is brutal. The more moral you try to appear, the more exploitable you become. Manipulators weaponize your conscience. They accuse lightly, not to convict you, but to watch how fast you move to clean the stain. Speed of defense equals depth of control. The moment you feel the urge to say, let me explain, understand what is happening. Your nervous system is kneeling before a perceived judge. You are preemptively accepting their jurisdiction. Withholding defense short-circuits this entire mechanism. Silence forces the other party to sit with their accusation. It denies them the dopamine of reaction. It removes the behavioral proof they were seeking. Instead of you collapsing inward, they begin leaking outward over explaining, escalating, revealing motive. This reversal is not accidental. It is structural. Pressure only works when it produces movement. When you do not move, pressure rebounds. The accuser becomes exposed. Their intent becomes visible. Their authority becomes questionable. This is why withholding defense feels wrong at first. You are violating a submission reflex that has kept humans compliant for thousands of years, but sovereignty has never belonged to those who felt comfortable. This chapter implants a new recognition. The discomfort you feel when staying silent is not danger. It is withdrawal from a hierarchy that was feeding on you. Once you understand this mechanism, explanation loses its innocence. Defense reveals itself as a leash you have been voluntarily holding, and letting go of that leash is the first act of power. Every social confrontation contains three roles, whether acknowledged or not. These roles are assigned instantly, and once assigned, they harden. Most men lose not because they are wrong, but because they accept the wrong role. The first role is the accuser. The accuser does not need evidence. Evidence is secondary. The accuser needs only initiative. By questioning, implying, or raising concern, they seize the frame. They become the one who defines the interaction. Even a mild accusation, "Why did you do that?" is a dominance probe disguised as curiosity. The accuser's power comes from motion. They move first. They destabilize. They introduce pressure into an otherwise neutral space. The second role is the explicable. This is where most men step immediately, not because they are weak, but because they were trained to equate response with maturity. The explicable believes engagement equals control. In reality, engagement without leverage equals surrender. The moment you explain, you accept the accuser's framing. You agree that clarification is required. You validate their right to question you. You place yourself beneath them in the hierarchy of the moment. Once you are the explicable, you cannot regain altitude inside that exchange. Every further sentence deepens your position. You are no longer acting. You are reacting. The more intelligent you are, the more eloquently you bury yourself. Then there is the third role, the observer. The observer may be silent, passive, or invisible, but they are decisive. This is the audience, coworkers, friends, family, bystanders, or even the abstract social record in people's minds. Observers do not judge truth. They judge posture. They watch who controls the frame. They watch who moves first under pressure. They watch who justifies, and they align accordingly. Observers instinctively side with the one who appears unpressured, not because they are virtuous, but because aligning with power is a survival strategy. This is why public defenses rarely work. You think you are convincing the accuser. You are actually disqualifying yourself in front of the observer. Here is the fatal error. Most men believe the conflict is between them, and the accuser. It is not. The real contest is between your posture and the observer's perception. When you explain, observers do not think, "He's honest." They think, "He's being managed." When you rush to clarify, observers do not feel relief. They feel confirmation that pressure works on you. That signal lingers long after the conversation ends. The accuser understands this. That is why accusations are often vague. Precision would require proof. Vagueness invites explanation, and explanation hands over the power. Now consider the inversion. When you refuse to explain, the accuser must escalate or retreat. Either path exposes them. Escalation reveals obsession or agenda. Retreat reveals weakness or bluff. In both cases, the observer recalibrates. Silence does not make you invisible. It makes others visible. The observer begins to notice tone shifts, emotional leakage, impatience. The accuser starts justifying their question. The roles begin to destabilize. This is why withholding defense is not passive. It is active role refusal. You are declining the explicable position entirely. You are forcing a re-roll of the social hierarchy. You are saying without words, "I do not accept this frame." Most men never do this. They believe they must play one of the offered roles: accuser or explicable, attack or defend. That is a false binary. Power exists in the third position, the one who does not react, does not justify, and does not seek alignment. The one who lets tension sit unresolved. Observers interpret unresolved tension as authority. This chapter rewires your understanding of conflict. You are not here to win arguments. You are here to be misaligned from pressure, to remain unassignable, To refuse the role that collapses your position. Once you see the roles, you can never unsee them, and once you stop stepping into the explicable, most conflicts die before they begin because the accuser has nothing to feed on. Pressure does not seek resolution. Pressure seeks confirmation. Every explanation you give is interpreted as proof that pressure works on you. Once that proof is established, escalation becomes inevitable. Not because the accuser is cruel, but because the system rewards those who push until resistance collapses. This is why explanations never end conflicts. They extend them. Look at interrogation not as a legal process, but as a psychological one. Investigators are trained to let suspects talk. Not because talk reveals truth, but because talk creates inconsistency. Each clarification opens new angles. Each defense introduces new surface area. Silence denies that surface. The same principle governs offices, relationships, families, and social groups. The first accusation is rarely serious. It is a test. A light probe designed to observe reaction speed and emotional leakage. If you respond immediately, you fail the test. The pressure then increases not in volume, but in intimacy. The questions become more personal. The tone becomes more concerned. The accusations become moral. You mistake this escalation for misunderstanding. It is not misunderstanding. It is calibration. Once you explain once, the other party learns three critical things. Where your insecurities are. What outcomes you fear. How far they can go. Every word you offer narrows their targeting. This is why manipulators ask innocent follow-ups. That's not what I meant. Can you clarify? Clarification is not requested to understand. It is requested to extract more data. Each sentence gives them more leverage. History repeats this pattern. Relentlessly. Public confessions were never about justice. They were about ritual humiliation. The more one confessed, the more the crowd demanded. Explanations did not absolve guilt. They institutionalized it. In courts. In trials of power rather than law, silence was feared more than lies. A silent man forces the system to show its hand. A talking man does the system's work for it. Even modern cancellation rituals follow the same architecture. The first apology is never enough. The second clarifies. The third grovels. The fourth destroys. Defense accelerates the punishment because the goal was never correction. It was dominance demonstration. You are not dealing with logic. You are dealing with appetite. Pressure feeds on reaction. It is metabolic. The moment you stop feeding it, it must either starve or reveal itself as predatory. Human nature does not change with context. Only the language changes. In relationships, explanation becomes emotional labor. The more you justify, the more standards are raised. The more transparent you are, the more transparency is demanded. Eventually, your entire inner life becomes subject to audit. This is not intimacy. It is surveillance. Notice the pattern. The side that explains becomes increasingly constrained. The side that questions becomes increasingly entitled. This imbalance grows until the explicable is either exhausted or erased. And still, men cling to explanation because they believe escalation means they haven't explained well enough yet. That belief is fatal. Escalation is not a failure of communication. It is proof of successful domination. Withholding defense breaks this cycle immediately. It does not appease. It interrupts. It forces a confrontation not of ideas, but of intent. When you do not explain, pressure must either become explicit or withdraw. Both outcomes expose reality. Either the other party reveals a naked attempt at control, or they disappear. This is why withholding defense feels dangerous. You are denying a predator its meal. Predators respond unpredictably when starved. But understand this: escalation is more dangerous when you feed it than when you stop it. Explanation stretches the conflict across time, draining status incrementally. Silence compresses the conflict into a single moment of decision, and power always prefers compression. This chapter leaves you with a ruthless clarity. If pressure increases when you explain, it is because explanation is working against you. The instinct to clear things up is the very mechanism that deepens the trap. Once you see escalation for what it is, a hunger response, you stop trying to satisfy it. You let it choke. Withholding defense is not politeness. It is not passivity. It is not confusion. It is a controlled act of social violence, clean, quiet, and destabilizing. Violence is not defined by noise or force. It is defined by disruption of expected patterns. When someone applies pressure, they expect movement. They expect justification. They expect compliance signals. When you offer none, you violate the script they rely on to maintain dominance. This violation creates shock, silence. Under accusation is not empty. It is loaded. It creates a vacuum, and vacuums pull. The accuser is forced to fill the space. When they do, they reveal motive, emotion, and overreach. You remain untouched. This is how absence becomes a weapon. Strategic withholding operates on 3 levels simultaneously. First, frame refusal. You are not disagreeing. You are not arguing. You are refusing to enter the courtroom at all. No defense means no trial. No trial means no verdict. Second, pressure reversal. Without response, pressure rebounds inward. The accuser begins to feel exposed. Their question hangs in the air unanswered. Observers begin to wonder why they are pushing. Suspicion shifts. Third, status assertion. High-status individuals do not hurry. They do not scramble. They do not explain. Stillness communicates authority more effectively than any rebuttal. This is why silence must be controlled, not emotional. Emotional silence looks wounded. Strategic silence looks deliberate. The difference is posture. You do not withdraw. You remain present. You maintain eye contact. You continue your actions unaffected. Your body communicates indifference to the frame being imposed. This is not avoidance. It is dominance without spectacle. Most men misunderstand this and turn withholding into sulking. That is weakness. Strategic withholding is calm, precise, and surgical. You are not offended. You are uninterested. There are forms of withholding beyond silence. Minimal acknowledgement without justification. Delayed response without apology. Neutral repetition without elaboration. Each denies the accuser what they seek, narrative control. The key is asymmetry. You give less than expected, not nothing. Nothing can provoke escalation prematurely. Less than expected creates uncertainty. Uncertainty destabilizes. This is why powerful figures often respond with statements, not explanations. Declarations close frames. Explanations open them. Understand the cost. Withholding defense will make some people uncomfortable. They will label you arrogant, cold, evasive. These labels are pressure tools. They are attempts to shame you back into compliance. If the label appears, the strategy is working. Men addicted to being liked cannot wield this weapon. Withholding defense requires tolerance for misinterpretation. It requires sovereignty over your reputation. Reputation management through explanation is endless. Reputation management through posture is finite. This chapter installs a new behavior pattern. When pressured, you do not expand, you contract. You do not justify, you stabilize. You do not explain, you endure the silence. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the compression of it. Once mastered, withholding defense changes how people approach you. Pressure attempts become rarer. Accusations soften. Questions become tentative. Not because you argued better, but because you trained others that access to you is limited. This is how strategic violence works. It does not announce itself. It changes the environment so that attacks never arrive. You are no longer something to be examined. You become something to be avoided. You cannot wield this doctrine without killing something inside yourself. What must die is not weakness, but innocence, the identity that seeks to be understood, the self-image that equates explanation with virtue, the internal judge that panics when misunderstood. That identity was built to survive in approval-based hierarchies. It functioned by visibility, compliance, and moral signaling. It kept you safe when safety depended on belonging. But power demands a different organism. The old identity believes silence equals failure. It believes being misjudged is intolerable. It believes clarity restores order. These beliefs are incompatible with sovereignty. Sovereignty requires the ability to remain intact while misunderstood. This is the death most men resist, not because it is painful, but because it feels immoral. You were taught that if someone thinks badly of you, you must correct them. That if someone accuses you, you owe them a response. You owe them nothing. Identity death begins when you internalize this truth. Your inner state does not require external alignment. Your self-concept cannot be hostage to other people's narratives. This shift is not loud. It is internal surgery. You stop monitoring how you are perceived. You stop correcting impressions. You stop narrating your intent. You act. You decide. You move forward. The replacement identity is not reactive. It is positional. It does not seek to be liked. It seeks to be unpressured. It understands that moral high ground without leverage is simply exposure at altitude. This new identity recognizes misunderstanding as neutral, sometimes useful, sometimes irrelevant, never urgent. When accused, it does not feel attacked, it feels tested. Tests are not answered emotionally. They are passed through non-engagement. This is why withholding defense feels unnatural at first. You are amputating a reflex that once kept you safe. The discomfort is withdrawal from validation, but something replaces it, internal coherence. You stop leaking energy. You stop explaining your existence. You stop granting others authority over your meaning. This identity does not argue. It does not convince. It does not chase narrative closure. It lets tension remain unresolved. Most people cannot tolerate unresolved tension. They rush to close loops. They demand explanation to soothe themselves. When you no longer participate in that loop, you exit their control grid. This is the final transformation. You are no longer readable on demand. Readability is vulnerability. Once you accept this identity, your behavior changes automatically. You speak less. You choose words more carefully. You respond only when response serves position, not emotion. People begin to sense that pressure does not land. They feel it instinctively. Predators do not attack armored prey. This chapter completes the internal shift. The old self that begged to be understood is gone. In its place stands a sovereign self that does not require agreement to exist. You are not here to be judged correctly. You are here to remain intact. That is identity replacement. This is the last correction you will be given. If you continue to explain yourself, you will continue to be owned. Not overtly, not dramatically, quietly, increment by increment. Explanation hands over authorship of your identity to whoever pressures you next. Once they are editing your narrative, you are no longer sovereign, you are responsive. Understand the warning. Precisely. People who demand explanations are not confused. They are checking for access. They are asking whether they are allowed to shape you. The moment you answer, you say yes. This doctrine is not for peacekeepers. It is for those who understand selection. Not everyone deserves clarity. Not every accusation deserves oxygen. Not every misunderstanding is accidental. You are not obligated to soothe the discomfort of those who probe you. Power has always functioned this way. The elite do not justify decisions. Institutions do not explain themselves to individuals. Authority flows one direction. The moment you reverse it, hierarchy collapses onto you. This is why the world punishes men who refuse to explain. It labels them cold, arrogant, difficult. These are not moral judgments. They are social weapons designed to restore your compliance. If you feel the urge to defend after hearing this, recognize it as conditioning resurfacing. This is not about becoming silent forever. It is about selectivity. Explanation is a resource. Resources are not distributed equally. They are allocated strategically. The final instruction is simple and unforgiving. When pressured, do not expand. When accused, do not justify. When misunderstood, do not panic. Let the silence work. Those who matter will adjust. Those who don't will expose themselves. You will lose some approval. You will gain something rarer. UNTOUCHABILIT. Why? Remember this law is a blade, not a belief. What you explain, you place beneath. What you withhold, you control. There is no comfort beyond this point. Only clarity. You are either explainable or you are sovereign. Choose carefully.